Hello, and welcome back to the NCMU podcast, where we are dedicated to raising up and equipping the next generation of nerd culture ministers and missionaries. My name is Mark, and I'm one of your podcast hosts, and I am here today with two very special guests. I have with me Tom and Tony Bancroft, and well, guys, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being willing to come on.
Hey, thanks, Mark. Thanks for having us. We're the biggest nerds.
Nerds unite.
There was some
Nerds
competition in like pre-show on which of you was the actual
biggest nerd.
The consensus was Tony. Maybe it was you. Is that accurate?
Tony has his own nerds. I'm gonna out him a little bit.
This
One of
is
the
Tom
nerdiest
speaking.
things.
Yes, go ahead,
This
Tom.
is Tom. One of the nerdiest things that Tony does, and I'm sorry, Tony, but I don't think I've ever told you this, and it's a little embarrassing, is he likes to do like cartoon voices. And stuff like that. And so, to me, that's another level of nerddom that I haven't reached into.
And I don't mind that, Tom, at all that you said that, because as animators, as we are, we bring characters to life. For me, it helps me to go deeper into the character, to take on the persona and try it out. So I feel like it's like a method actor in a lot of ways. So by you saying that, I think you're complimenting me, actually, that I'm a better animator than you.
That's not what I'm saying at all. There are voice actors that get hired to do that job.
I don't do it professionally, but I do enjoy putting on the persona of the character.
Yeah, and sing out loud 70s music.
Yeah.
I don't cosplay.
We both do that.
You're not cosplayers.
Yeah. No, we're not cosplayers. I wouldn't dress up.
It was Tony that said that, for all you that want to unfollow him.
Well, I love it, but I'm not doing it.
Listen, at Nerd Culture Ministry Summit, we had people who cosplay, even with our small group of people. The cosplayers all over. I was far worse than a cosplayer in my high school days. I was a live action role player, which means I dressed up like a medieval character, and no one even else got to saw except other people also dressed up like medieval role players in the woods by ourselves. And so I'll say this. If the worst that you do is character voices, Tony, I will gladly take the cake for the nerdiest one on this call. And I'll wear that as a badge of honor. I can out-nerd just about anybody.
Well, Mark, Tom and I grew up at a time, we're much older than you. So when we grew up and we were being called nerds, it's because we were like in high school and we're reading comic books. We thought we would never have a girlfriend. We're drawing and we're reading comics at a time when
drawing
that was
cartoons,
not cool. I mean, we were true nerds, original OG nerds. And yes, it never got us a girlfriend whatsoever.
Yeah, so, I mean, nerd is a compliment now, right?
Yeah, it is.
Because the nerds have won, and let's face it.
Well, you paved the way. Let's be real. Like I always say,
thank you.
If you've gone before us, and and you got like the atomic wedgies for us, right? You've really paved the way for people like me who grew up in the the 90s and the 2000s to be a Dungeons and Dragons player and to own the shirt and to not get mashed potatoes thrown at me at lunch, right? Like I was able to be full-fledged the nerd that I am and gamer that I am all through high school and in college, and that was
You're
accepted.
Welcome.
So thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
You took the abuse for me.
Lots of pain, lonely nights, but you're welcome.
I appreciate it. I have a buddy who grew up in the 80s, and I say the same exact thing to him. I always tell him he's a D&D player. Thank you so much for going before me and paving the way so that I can have an easier life. Well, guys, I'd love to get to know you guys a little bit and have our audience get to know you. This season of the podcast has been a lot of people that, quite frankly, a lot of people in our circle aren't super familiar with. So, Tom, why don't we start with you? Tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your career, and then, even like where you and Tony are right now. And then, Tony, I'd love for you to chime in as well, and after Tom, and fill in and let us know about yourself.
Sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of overlap. So I'm sure when we get to Tony, he's just going to repeat everything I just said. But here we go. Grew up in California. I have a twin brother named Tony. We did everything together, including drawing together, and we loved comic strips way back when, and would draw the Peanuts and Snoopy and Charlie Brown and, later on Garfield. And that evolved into loving comic books. Marvel, we're original Marvel Comics fans before it was cool. And But that was too hard to draw. So we just dabbled in that a little bit. But that led to then, coming out of high school and doing comic strips for the high school newspaper, things like that. We then went to Cal Arts. We discovered this school, Cal Arts. It was co-founded by Walt Disney himself, and a lot of the Disney animators. One of the first schools in the U.S. that taught animation. And a lot of our instructors were, working at Disney during the day and teaching at night. And so went there for a couple years and, kind of got really passionate about animation. And that led to an internship at Disney in 1988, the end of 88, and a job after that 9 weeks. That was right when they were making the Little Mermaid, too. So we got to see that in production. And we then got the job, but it was to move out to Florida. They were just opening up the new Disney MGM studios back in the day. So May of 1989 is when the doors opened to that new studio that was on tour. So a lot of
in Orlando.
You said even your wife was there back when she was 8, and we might have met her as a little girl.
Yeah, I said earlier, Tony, that she grew up in Kissimmee and went on a tour through the animation studio at like 6, 7, or 8 years old while you guys were in the process of making Mulan, which you guys both had the opportunity to work on.
That's so
and I've kind of skipped over all the movies, but basically during all that time then of being at Disney, it was, from that point on about 12 years of being at Disney. And it was all during the 90s and, 2000s, early 2000s. And so it was films like Rescuers Down Under, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, Pocahontas. I did some Tarzan and Mulan, and then a little bit of Brother Bear. So, and on Mulan, Tony was the co-director of Mulan, and I was the supervising animator of Mushu. So we moved up the ranks. And so real quick, where we are now, somewhere after that, after they shut down that studio, I went to Big Idea Productions just before that to work on VeggieTales. And I did the new Adventures of Larry Boy there, the 2D animated series. And I was the supervising director of that. And then they went bankrupt.
Yes.
And so ended up kind of coming back here. So I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, just outside of Nashville in Franklin. And I've been here for about 21 years. During that time, I started a new company, animation company with a friend. And then also started developing the school, Lipscomb University. I founded the animation program there about 11 years ago. 11 or 12, and then now have my own company. In 2020, I started Pencilish Animation Studios, and so we have a YouTube channel. We're creating our own IP. We're crowdfunded, so we have a lot of nerds and geeks that are backing us to make animation, which is wonderful. Love those people, and now. Pencilish was hired to be the leadership or part of the leadership for a new film, Light of the World. It's the story of Jesus Christ told in glorious 2D animation. And all
glorious 2D animation.
Yes. And so we brought on Tony. He was my boss on Mulan. And
finally, we're getting back to me.
His boss to Light of the World. I went first, so I'm still finishing. I'm landing that plane. But you're going to have an easy story to tell now. And so anyway, Light of the World comes out September 5th, and we're super excited. That's only 3 weeks away.
Oh, holy cow. Yeah, that's right around the corner. This episode will probably come out like almost exactly when Light of the World will come out.
Go see it this weekend.
Yeah.
Have to.
We need Christian support for this new movie for sure. Yeah. So the only thing I'm going to add to that is that, yes, in the 90s, Tom and I were very blessed and fortunate to come out of school right into the 90s at Disney, which we didn't know this at the time. Actually, when we came out of school, it was like a really downtime. And people were, we had little old ladies that we worked with that when we were PAs for a small little company that were telling us, get out of the industry. It's crazy. It's everything's going overseas and it's, doom and destruction. And it's never going to be like the golden age of when Walt Disney was still alive. And it's only going downhill and going to go away. We didn't buy that. We were passionate. We loved what we were doing. And we were like, well, we're going to squeeze every moment out of animation as it goes down the tubes then. But so we stuck with it, got over at Disney. Like Tom said, we're part of Rescuers Down Under, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Lion King, Hunchback of Notre Dame. You didn't get all mine. Tom worked on Pocahontas, but I did Emperor's New Groove.
Oh, amazing.
So I got a chance to be a part of comedy characters that have influenced Disney culture and the world in a lot of ways, because I did Cogsworth in Beauty and the Beast, I did Iago in Aladdin, I did Pumbaa in The Lion King, and Kronk in Emperor's New Groove. And then I also moved into directing. As Tom said, I was, this was a career high, was co-directing Disney's Mulan in Florida. And then the personal high, I was Tom's boss.
Yeah.
So
there it is.
That's important to throw in there. Yeah, and we just had a great time. We didn't know what we didn't know about what was going on historically, and looking back now, you go, oh my gosh, we were so blessed. God just put us in the right place, exact right time. We grew a lot. We got promotions. We kind of moved up the ranks. Now we're all about teaching and giving back. We have a podcast that we do that is all based on that, the Bancroft Brothers Animation Podcast. God is good. I don't know what else to say. I'm done.
Amazing.
Click. Mic drop. Okay.
Okay. I do have a secondary question that's not on my list of questions to ask you. He's gotten to know you guys, hear a lot about this. We're going to get into a little bit of like faith journey, how that plays into working at Disney, right? Obviously. Well, I don't know. All that I know is, what you see online now, but Disney is not the most Christian environment today. And obviously you guys had not worked there in a while. Maybe it was different then. We'll get into that in a moment. But I do need to know, like, if you had to pick one character that, like, man, it was your favorite one to work on, the one that you're most proud of, you look back on it and be like, man, this was really the thing that stuck out to me. Which character would that be?
Yeah, it's easy for both of us, I think, but I'm just going to throw in Mushu, the dragon.
Okay.
Both designing him and animating him was, such an honor and a joy.
Yeah.
I think easiest and funnest was Kronk, but best overall, Pumbaa.
Okay.
Oh, God. That's my boy. I'm Pumbaa guy on Instagram.
Okay, I love that. Wow. I mean, yeah, I will say this. When my wife listens to this episode, I don't think she's ever listened to this podcast, but she will definitely make a point to listen to this one.
There we go. Better.
Yeah, Kronk will be, that's a crowd favorite amongst our entire church family. That character in particular. Yeah, even our video director quotes him quite often.
Everybody does the voice. Go ahead, Tony.
Everybody does. It's a little Patrick Warburton. You got to be a little low and raspy. All right. The poison for Cusco.
Yeah. Tom, hang on. You said he wasn't a voice actor.
Don't compliment him.
Tom.
Mark, don't go there.
I don't know.
I got a little stitch too. I can pull out. You just let me know when you're ready.
Next, he'll start singing Dancing Queen.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like he might be able to, like, a quick occupational switch, like a change in direction.
It could happen.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk about faith, because both of you are believers, and we've talked about a little bit of that I talked a little bit with Tom in pre. That's absolutely legendary characters that have been staples in probably every person that listens to this podcast episode, every one of our childhoods, right? I watched Lion King every day, 2 or 3 times a day.
Wow.
Evidently my mom was fine with me being in front of the TV that much. And millennials, we would never let our kids do that. But back then, my mom was
just
fine with
babysitters.
it. Yeah.
And then you'd hit the Atari after dinner and just all night long.
Yeah.
That's right. Wow. That early Nintendo.
Yeah. And so, like, but the reason you're on this is because it isn't just that you've animated some of our favorite characters. It is also because faith has been an integral part of each of your lives. And so tell me a little bit, either you can chime in, but tell me a little bit about living out being a Christian inside of a highly creative and largely I wouldn't say against faith, but a largely secular environment.
Yeah,
go ahead, Tony. Oh, okay.
What?
We're like, we don't want to answer that. I'll say this. When I first got into animation and cartooning in general, even before that, comic strips, all that, I never dreamed that there would be instances of making kids' entertainment and because that's honestly everything I've ever done is kids entertainment, and that I would have a conflict with my faith. And it wasn't until I went to Disney, and after years of working on a lot of those films from the 90s, I started having conflict with Disney. I started having conflict with my beliefs. And I already knew, but the thing that would happen would be, as a believer, also you're following your dream. I was so into what we were doing at Disney and love the movies just like you guys do now, right? We were passionate about it. But it's also like the Olympics. You're at the top place, right, in the world. So what am I going to do and complain about that, right? But around 2000, honestly, after doing a string of movies, our sister, who was going to a small Baptist church in Arkansas all during the 90s, she would call us and say, I get people at church telling me that, here, let me do a voice. I get people at church telling me that, how can my brothers work for that satanic, the company, Disney, on all those horrible animated films that, and so Tony and I would defend Disney because we're like, oh, no, Pocahontas, yeah, she's praying to nature and all that, and Grandmother Willow, but she, that's part of their culture,
Sure.
and she is a real character. And so, I would tell her that I'd give her the line that I had been told. And I believe that line, actually, even to this day. We were being true to her culture, and that was an important part of telling that story. Then comes Mulan, and we're telling another part of the ancient Chinese culture, which was they prayed to their ancestors. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that's still, again, part of that culture. Mulan may or may not be real. It's kind of a fable. But, that's still, we're being true to that culture.
There's two sides to... Sorry, Tom, were you done? It felt like
I have an ending to that, but if you want to cut in now, I'll come back to the ending.
No,
go ahead.
All right. You kind of circle back. But yeah, there's two sides to that coin of that question, Mark, because I can't tell you, just like Tom was saying, I can't tell you whether it's our sister or somebody else, how many times people in my church or something, they would see something on TV, like The Lion King comes out, and it's really cool to be working at Disney when The Lion King comes out. Let me just tell you that. Until Christians are going, well, I heard Nathan Lane on The Tonight Show talking about how Pumbaa and Timon are the first Disney gay couple. Or, I read this online and it said this and this. And it's like, well, first of all, none of that's true. And for one, you can't believe everything that you hear. But two, I remember one time I went to a very, very, I'm not going to name the ministry, but a very, very big popular ministry at the time. That was, and they were joining in with the Baptist churches and they were boycotting Disney. But we went there, my friends and I, who started a faith-based animation company, my partners and I, we went to this ministry and we were going to have a meeting about developing some animation for them. And the very first person that came up to me representing the ministry to introduce herself and to take us on a tour and stuff of this ministry, she said, "Oh, you're the one that works for Disney. I have to ask a question. What is it like? How can you be a Christian and work in the entertainment and work for Disney? I mean, I'm really, how do you justify that?" And I was taken aback by a fellow Christian. Yeah. And I'm shocked by that. I'm actually like, I'm really trying to hold back here because I was really upset because I thought, is she saying what I think she's calling out my service to the Lord in some way? Is she calling out, truly you can't be a Christian because you work there?
Yeah, question your salvation because you drew Pumbaa. How dare you?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, right.
And I said, well, I don't have the advantage of working in a ministry where we preach to each other all day long. But I will say that I feel called and that I think that Hollywood is a ministry unto itself. And I feel called to that ministry to be a light in a dark place. I think that's what God calls us all to do, as a matter of fact.
Slam.
And, she would not, she was flustered by that and like, oh, yeah, of course, that's great. And then we went on with the tour and nothing ever happened with that ministry, animation-wise with me. But I will say that I just felt like, that is the attitude that we were always up against. And my reaction has always been, why wouldn't God want us to be here? Why wouldn't God want us to be speaking in? Can you imagine if Mulan, thankfully my co-director on Mulan, Barry Cook, was also a believer. If we weren't, and we could have there, and it was two other directors that was doing that and wanted to dig deeper into the Buddhism culture and play up that in the storytelling. It could have become very preachy from a standpoint of Buddhism, or even familial piety, which was something that they practiced their ancestor worship. We could have gone a totally different way, but because of that, we had fun with it. We made it more comical when the family of ancestors get together. But I look at that and I say, what if we weren't there? It's maybe not a Christian faith-based message. Well, of course it's not. And Disney never, this is the other part I tell people, Disney's not a Christian organization. No. It might believe in family values, but it only believes in family values up to the point where society says these are what family values are. Yeah. It follows culture. It follows society. It doesn't follow the word, the scripture, the word of God. It's a corporation. It follows the almighty dollar and what they think people want.
Tom, I'm going to toss this back to you in just a moment so we can hear your closing thought. But I just wanted to chime in there, Tony. The name of our church is Lux, Lux. It's a Latin word for light. And our mission statement is a light for every dark place. We receive our fair share of criticism as well, right? You're a fully online church. You're soiling the bride of Christ, right? You're trying to reach gamers. Aren't all video games satanic and evil and bad? Don't they promote violence? What are you trying to do? Get people to stay in their parents' basements for the rest of their lives? And my response is, doesn't the person in his parents' basement that will never come to the doors of your church also deserve to hear the gospel and get to know Jesus? And if they do, let me just tell you, they're never coming to your church, ever. And so, we say very quite literally would rather gamble and say, well, I don't know if there's a hell or not, but if there is, I think I'd rather go there than spend this life in that hell, which is in your church. And so and things that people love, and how do we become a light for every internal, external, and spiritual darkness that people are facing? And so I love that heart. That's very near and dear to my heart, because it's been it's the pulse and the beating of who we are as a church. It's like,
I love it.
Yeah. Why, if we would send missionaries to any third world country, no matter how dangerous or how chance of them dying, why would we not send it to the darkest places in the internet and in the entertainment industry? Why would we not send people to Hollywood? Why would we not have people in Disney? Absolutely. Okay, Tom, I'm sorry.
I totally agree. And now I'm going to contradict some of that, which is just to say, there's another side to this, and this is me landing the plane on that story, which is, I agree with everything that Tony just said. We were trying to be, salt and light within this world, and we need those people in Hollywood. We need those people, right? And so, but fast forward, I get on a film called John Henry. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It was a short film that Disney did. And I had just come off Mushu, and so I was a supervising animator on that film, and it was a little short. So it's a small team. And the director was a Christian too, as a matter of fact. And it's sort of an old, wholesome story, about man against machine and all that. But it also takes place in a time when we were just coming out of slavery. And it spotlights African Americans coming out of slavery, and so spiritual themes were a big part of it. Remember I talked about culture and being true to culture in all the other films? In this one, the culture were African Americans that were very much entrenched in their faith because that's how they got through slavery, right? Mm-hmm. And we were portraying that. We had gospel singers doing the music in it. We had, a little church that had a steeple that had a cross on top of it. Oh, that's not too bad, right? But it was there. And so anyway, we screened this short film. I'm in a screening room, right before we're going into production. And we screen it for the president of feature animation, president and vice president of feature animation. Again, it's only about 20 people in this room. And it's the story reel with a little bit of animation. And when it's over, the president of feature animation goes, this film makes me feel uncomfortable. And we all knew what he was talking about. And he said, then it became a big debate. The vice president actually defended it. Who was a gay man, actually. He kind of was like, well, no, that's the whole point, right? It's supposed to feel like, Christian, because that's kind of what this whole story is. And he got it, right? But the president kind of stood his ground and said, well, I just want to lighten it up and, all that. And so we ended up taking the cross off the top of the church. So it was just a steeple. We ended up kind of taking out some of the God references in some of the songs. And those weren't my decisions to make. I'm glad they weren't, because I don't know what I would have done, to be honest, at that time and at my age at that time. But I can tell you that 6 months after that, I left Disney. And it was directly because of that moment. I didn't know it at that time, that 6 months later I would end up leaving. But that moment is the one that I can point to go, yep, I saw the other side, and not everybody is making up stories. That there are people internal to Disney. This is the year 2000, 1999, 2000. This was a while back.
Yeah.
So obviously we have a very woke kind of a situation at Disney, and just in entertainment in general.
Yeah, it's only gotten worse for sure.
It's definitely gotten worse. But
it's about agendas and things like that.
Right. But there was an agenda in this situation that wasn't there for Pocahontas, that wasn't there for Mulan, that wasn't there for Hunchback of Notre Dame, which had a bishop that's basically
that's the I love that story, Tom, because every time you tell it just rings so true to me, because I remember those executives, I remember those meetings, and my heart just softly cries a little bit when I hear that story, and I think about Mark Henn, who is the Christian director behind that, and I think about you and the other guys in the room. But then on the other side of the coin, I want to go back to, what if you guys weren't there at all? John Henry wouldn't have been made. It wouldn't have had any kind of faith agenda to it, or any kind of faith spirituality to it, that was directly God influenced. And people say that when they watch, and Mark, you haven't seen it probably, but it is a short that is a bit more obscure because they didn't put it forward in a big way. But just like Johnny Appleseed, if you ever saw that original short, he's praying to God. He's singing about God and God's bounty and stuff in that short, because at the time they were okay with that when Walt was there.
In the 50s.
Well, now this is what's happening at Disney. But the other side of the coin, I want to point out, the positive side is like, that short still got made. It might not have had a cross on the steeple, but it had, there was prayer in it, there was gospel songs, and there was praise to God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's easy when you're. I have a leader who once told me frequently. He said, "Mark, when you're at the top of the ladder, everybody can see up your skirt." It's easy to critique anybody who's at the top of the heap, which is why Disney is such an easy thing to critique. It's such an easy thing to throw rocks at. With wherever they are, wherever they were, it is an easy thing to throw rocks at. What I think I'm picking up, and what I'm learning, and what I want our listeners to learn as well, is like, man, be so careful with the rocks that you're throwing and at whom you are throwing them, right? Because Tom and Tony, you guys were in this space because you were passionate about it. You have really good intentions. You are doing everything you can to live out your faith passionately, and in that space. While also, let's be real, guys, it is not cut and dry. Anybody sitting from the outside can say, hey, look how cut and dry this is. When you're inside of the organization, you've never been asked to do something that you wouldn't do. You love the organization and you want to see it go in the right direction. It's easy to critique the people who are inside when you're not making the decisions and you don't have to live with any of the decisions. And so, if there's one thing that I learned, Tony, it's like, man, having this one person from a ministry kind of throw stones at you right off the bat just for working inside of a company because Pocahontas, talks to the river, is one of those things where it's like, listen, if you aren't working as a believer in a creative secular field, you don't know what it is to work as a believer in a creative and secular field. And so, give people the benefit of doubt, rally behind them, support them, don't throw stones. And that's certainly something that I think our listeners can take home as well. We got a lot of people who are streaming, and if you've never hit go live and played a video game in front of a group of people and tried to have a live spiritual conversation with a bunch of trolls in the chat, you don't know what it's like. And so, support people, be there for them. Yeah.
Amen.
Okay, Tony, I'm going to toss this one at you first, and then Tom can interrupt, and you can decide if you want to.
He will.
Yeah, he will.
Yeah, I'll try.
The whole theme of this year's summit, coming up in April, is it's the word onward. And so our goal is, how do we get people to get off the launch pad, right? We have a lot of people with big ideas and dreams and things they believe God has told them to do. But there is a lot of energy that is required to take an idea, especially a creative one, and turn that into something that actually happens. And so, what have you learned over your time working for Disney? Now, guys working for the studio that you founded, Tony, you're working for. What have you learned about taking a creative idea and a dream and actually taking that thing and making it a reality?
I think the simple way of saying it is exactly what I learned from my mom. Tom and I were blessed with a mother that was a single parent. Mm-hmm. And I say blessed because that's obviously an awkward and difficult situation in childhood. But the upside was that we were 100% influenced by her, and she was at that time a real force of nature in saying, you kids can do whatever you want. You can set your goals as high as you want. You can make it. There's no reason. She was very positive in that regard. And one of the things, the most important takeaways that I got from my mom was she used to always say, if a door of opportunity opens up, go through it. What's the worst that can happen? You can fall, it can be slammed in your face. But if you don't, you never want to be, I'm very much one of these people that says, I don't want to be on my deathbed and have regrets about things that I didn't do or didn't try, especially when it comes to for God. So when I felt a spiritual calling from God while I was at Disney to leave Disney and start my own animation company, it was super risky. Everybody was against. All my friends at Disney were like, what are you thinking? What are you doing? And we were at, Lion King had come out. I just directed Mulan, worked on Emperor's New Groove. And it looked like, from a lot of people's gaze that we were still on top and animation was going strong and there was a long career to be had at Disney. And I decided to leave because I felt God was really calling me to do more. So, and more directly use those skill sets. Because like Tom said, and like we were talking about before, it felt like Disney was at a point where it was only going to get worse. It was only going to get worse from the standpoint of being a Christian within that scheme of Disney feature animation, and that we felt a little too blocked all the time. So it was a good time to leave and try and do something more. So my encouragement for people really is just about getting out and doing it. We have so many fears. We have so many people in our lives that are going to give us negativity, that are going to tell us don't do that. They're really talking about themselves. And don't listen to others. Do what you feel called to do and go boldly forward. I mean, doggone it, I just want to encourage everybody to just really take those first steps, and they'll see God will continue to open doors. And that's how you know. That's how you know you're doing the right thing.
Interesting. What Paul tells the church that he and Barnabas are sent out of to pray for. He says, pray for boldness, not for protection, not for safety, not for travel mercies. He says, pray for boldness in sharing the gospel. And certainly boldness in love is much required as followers of Jesus, especially when you're working in environments that might not otherwise be too inclined to listen to your beliefs and convictions. So, yeah. Tom, how about you? How do you see taking a project? You're working on this right now, right? And what I would love for you to do, Tom, is I'd also love for you to talk a little bit about the movie that you guys have coming out here in September. Even because you've obviously been intimately involved with that from beginning to end, right? Because it's your studio who's been contracted to do the animation and everything for it. And so, unpack that a little bit. And it can even get if you want to get in the weeds and get real practical on like, hey, yeah, we make sure that these are the stages for a creative project, and these stages translate not just to animation, but 2D animation. They also translate into a lot of other endeavors. If you want to get practical with it, you can. If you got something that's, mystical advice that would be helpful, that's fine as well.
Mystical. Hopefully biblical. I'll say this. I'm going to steal from my answer probably that would have been at the end of this about, what is something that young Tom would tell old Tom. But I do believe strongly, and there was a turning point in my life where I realized I wasn't finishing things. And I'm talking to every creative out there right now. You know what I'm saying, which is we are really good at starting things, and we're terrible at finishing things. And I realized about the time I left Disney. Okay, so like Disney was all creatively that I had in me. I would give it all day long and into the late nights and weekends. And to a fault. But I would come home exhausted and not want to do a side project, not want to do these other things. But I had a box of ideas that I kept of all these. I would write down for comic strip ideas, for comic book ideas, and all this. It was my box of ideas. And again, when I was at Disney, I was too exhausted to even do it. My brain was fried. But when I left Disney, immediately I was unfulfilled. I had gone to big idea productions. I was learning computer animation, very technical, and it's a lot simpler storylines and things like that. The challenge of drawing and of 2D animation was no longer there. And so I would come home from work more like, I've just been reading, technical manuals all day. I need to draw. I wanted to, the passion came back for that after hours things. And I started going through that little box, and I pulled out a graphic novel idea that I always wanted to do about these two characters and a superhero. And so I thought, I'm going to make this. I just decided, and by the way, right away, my wife got pregnant with twins. And so I'm like, but I didn't stop. I just said, no. At a certain point, I realized I have to get this idea past that hurdle. We always hit a hurdle, a little problem, a snag in the story, whatever it is, or I don't like that character design, whatever it is, and we kind of put it away. I realized I have to get past that. If I get past that, I'm in too deep. I have to finish this now. And I got to that point with that story where I went, okay, I'm obsessed with finishing this because I can see it in my head. And I didn't have it all fleshed out, but I at least had the first issue and the second issue and a little bit the whole, overarching storyline. And I had character designs I really liked. And I was like, I want to draw this. And so literally we had twins, and I'm waking up for the 4 a.m. feeding of both of them. And I'd put them back down exhausted at about 5 a.m. But now I'm awake. And so I just would work on my comic from 5 to 7 a.m. until our older daughters woke up. And I had to get them ready for school. And so it's that kind of mentality. Obviously, I'm talking about also a lot of, work ethic, that you have to have. And I would do it late at night too. When my wife was like, watching TV or something like that, I'd be half watching and sketching and things like that. But, or rewriting the script. All I'm saying is that artists finish things. We need to get rid of that mentality that creatives don't finish things and that we're not reliable and that we're not, you know what I mean? If you're passionate about doing something, like Tony and I get, I want to work at Disney, with those kind of questions all the time online, right? How do I get into Disney? How do I get into Disney? You wouldn't ask me that if you were passionate about it. Because all that information's online. You've already told me, I already can tell you why you're not going to make it to Disney. I can tell you probably that you don't draw every day. Because that's my first answer back. My question back to you on that question is, do you draw every day? If your answer is no, you're not going to make it to Disney, right? You're not going to make the Olympics. Like people that want to be a professional baseball player playing baseball every day for hours at a time. That's what it's like to work at Disney. And so that kind of mentality of finishing things and putting your passion into, because if it is a real passion, and especially if it's a God-given one, like there comes a point where I would say that it's just wrong that you're not using that talent and ability if God gave you that passion. And then at that point, I mean, is it sin that you're watching TV instead of playing video games? I don't know, but I won't go that far. But I will say that you got to get in that mentality of finishing things, because if you don't, you're never ever going to know, could I have been this? Could I have done that? Could I have succeeded? And by the way, the first one's probably going to be bad. You'll just finish it.
Of course.
Just finish it. Go on to the next one and make it better. And that was something I learned at Disney. And I finally put it into, started doing it. And since then I've done graphic novels and all kinds of projects on the side.
I'm gonna set you up, Tom, for a spike here with Light of the World. Let's circle it back into that, which is, sorry, excuse me. Having Tom said that and what we talked about our early careers, we were Christians in somebody else's world. We were working for Disney, creating and crafting their stories. Both Tom and I, even though we didn't really talk about it a lot, we wanted to do something more with our talents and abilities for Christ. And at first, for me, I felt like that was starting Tenacious Family Entertainment, my own animation company that was faith-based. We were doing something that was right along the lines of like a VeggieTales, but with 2D characters. We were doing videos like that had good moral lessons. But there was always a part of me that felt like maybe one day I'll be able to do that ultimate movie, a 2D, because this is our love. Tom and I grew up drawing, so of course we love 2D animation first and foremost. 2D animated feature about the life of Jesus. And somebody along my road and path of life, around the time I was leaving Disney, did offer me an opportunity to possibly direct they had a script and they had songs and stuff like that. It didn't go anywhere, and there was part of me that was always frightened as a Christian to be that person that would put their head out there and say, I know enough about who Jesus is. I know enough about what God's calling is. I know enough about salvation and all that I'm going to be an authority and make this movie. Because it does. It's like when you're making a movie about Jesus, boy, you better know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
First and foremost, it's not just the feeling I have that Jesus is my friend, Jesus is my father, but there is accuracy, biblical accuracy that needs to come into play, obviously. So I put that off. I kind of erased that. Like, that's never going to happen. And I know the same is for Tom, too. And then I'm going to hand this over to Tom because something happened here just recently, late in our lives, late in our careers. God opened a door.
Yeah, so I had been in the Christian realm of animation, just like Tony, because I did Big Idea. I also worked at CBN and helped them develop a Superbook show.
Okay.
And while I did that, one of the producer there that was in charge of kind of creating that, and he tapped into me to help develop it, was John Schaefer. And we became good friends. So I worked with him for 5 or 6, 7 years, 18 years ago. And on that series, and we did like 5 seasons and all that. And so, but we kind of drifted apart. And by the way, we would go to San Diego Comic-Con together, me and Tony and him, and we'd just geek out. So yes, we're true geeks. San Diego Comic-Con right there. But what was born from that is that fast forward a few years later, and he calls me. He's like, "Hey, I've left CBN. I'm at this new nonprofit." And, I'm doing curriculum, but, our boss here, the investor, the main guy that is kind of paying for everything, he said, I want to make a 2D animated feature film about Jesus. And it's fully funded. He got me on all of those things, fully funded first, I will admit, but the 2D, the life of Christ, all of that. And then we want to make it also from the standpoint of young John the Apostle. It's now, and I'm like, wait a second, you just pitched me, what if Disney made a story of Jesus in the 90s, but without the music? That's how they would do it. It'd be a coming of age story of a kid who's now trying to find the Messiah, trying to find somebody to help save his family, and has to go off on his own and a little bit of an adventure to find him, and then finding him and realizing he's not quite what we thought he was. He's not going to be the slayer of all the Romans and sit on and be a king, right? That defeated the Romans and brings the Jews to power. He's going to die, and they're not going to get it. They're going to misunderstand even why that happened, and then get it kind of after the fact when he rises again. So that was the story they wanted to tell, and I was just like, this is the project I didn't know I was waiting for. This is the project that, and then we brought in Tony later, and I think I can say this for both of us. All of our training through the years at Disney, this was why we were doing it. It has to be. It felt too personal, too intimate, too much like we were needed for this film to make it. That it wasn't an accident.
Let me just interject real quick. Going back to that lady that worked for the ministry that called me out to say, why would you as a Christian be working at Disney? Now come fast forward to where we're at right now with Light of the World coming out on September 5th in a theater near you, and it's the story of Jesus in glorious 2D animation. That's why. I couldn't have told her. I reacted defensively, but because what I didn't know too is that there was a higher purpose. God wanted us to be trained to be excellent. He calls Christians to be excellent in what they do.
Absolutely.
Not halfway, not cheap out all the time like we see so much in Christian entertainment.
Yeah.
This is a time where we had the right team at the right time with an investor that was a God-loving, God-fearing Christian that had the money and the resources to pour into this and let us do our job. And that was the biggest miracle of all of it, I think, is just that he trusted us to craft this story and to make it what it needed to be so that it's, yes, there's no shame in it, entertaining. It's entertaining. It's a fun movie to watch. Yeah. There's actually humor in it, too. And then it's also heart-wrenching and difficult at times in the movie, too. And it's a buddy film, and there's so many elements to it that are going to be special and new to people. Like, I've never seen the story of Jesus told this way, that I think people are going to really react to it if they go see it on September 5th. Go ahead, Tom.
Well, I think you landed the plane pretty good. But
that's a compliment from your twin brother. You take that.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
It's the first time I've said that.
Well, we are going to work towards wrapping up because I could sit here and honestly listen to you guys talk for the next couple of hours and just probe with questions. I have one more. Before I do that, just earlier you were mentioning about, like, as a creative getting stuff done. I work with a couple of creatives and I've had that conversation with our youngest staff member, and I've had to hold his feet to the fire a couple of times. He's been on this show just about, and seeing him accomplish things and get stuff done. And he's done a couple of short form documentaries for us at the church now, and one school and an orphanage in Africa. One he did for the Megazord Summit that we did in 2022, and it's been so cool to watch him flourish. But I also want to recommend a book. John Acuff wrote a book called Finish, Give Yourself the Gift of Done. And if you're out there and you're creative and you're having a hard time taking a project and sticking with it, and another thing is, we've heard over and over again on this podcast, just last episode that I did with that Denver guy, he's my age, 37, builds YouTube channels for people now, and he'll tell you, he told us on the show, I worked as a teacher all day. I came home, I drank a big coffee, I grinded at night, building YouTube videos, building thumbnails, getting better every day. I did that for years. I got a couple hours of sleep. I woke up, I did the same thing. If you don't have the tenacity and the grit to put in the work, to put in the hours, the passion to grind, and not just grind until you're exhausted, grind because it gives you life. It is going to be really difficult. And I think that's a great word of warning. It's a caution, right? If you just think this is a cool idea because you saw someone else do it and you want to imitate them, that's one thing. If this is a fire that burns in your heart, that the day you step out of it, you got to start drawing at home again, because you can't not draw. Like for me, I can't not teach. I have to teach. The day I stop preaching, I start looking for places to preach. It's a fire that's in my bones. God puts a fire in our bones. He says that through the prophets. He's done that through you guys in drawing. And it's so cool to see how God's using that. Now, I land the plane in every episode with this. What would you tell your younger self? And so I'm going to ask you guys to think this. Tom and Tony, you're 22, 23 years old, however old you were. You took a job working for Disney. You're leaving California, SoCal. You're flying to Florida. You're going to be in this new animation studio. You got all the nerves that go along with that. You don't know that you are, you know, to quote some stuff from the musical Hamilton, that history has its eyes on you right now, right? Like history is literally going to be looking at you guys. You're going to be making some of the most iconic animated films in all of cultural history, right? What would you guys now today, building the film that you just built, that's, you know, drawn and produced and is coming out here in a couple of days, what would you tell that 22, 23-year-old self?
I'm going to go first in case Tony takes it.
Okay.
Besides finishing things, I'm going to say patience. Is that I didn't have patience back then. I think both Tony and I were so driven and excited and passionate for the path we were on, especially just getting off that plane. And here we are in Florida, and we're just starting our lives, but we're doing it at Disney. And they're saying, hey, let's make a Roger Rabbit cartoon. And that was like the first project we did. And we're going to teach you how to do it and pay you at the same time. I mean, it doesn't happen like this anymore, by the way, but that's how it happened. But I wanted to, you know, climb the ladder so fast. Like I know I could have stayed longer in certain positions and things like that and learned more. But what comes from that, honestly, and this is the second part of that, is I wasn't content. For many years, I was doing my dream job and I wasn't content because I didn't have patience. I wanted to get to the next thing. I wanted to get, but I'm not doing that over there. I got this, you know, this scene or this character that I'm working on, but I wanted that one over there. You know, there's something always better. And so contentment is actually the number one thing that I try and chase now. I'm still not good at it. I must admit, but I know I'm probably the happiest I've ever been right now, and I'm not at Disney. I was happy then, but it was a different kind of happy because I just wasn't totally content the whole time.
I would probably tell my younger self, I'll be honest, it's very similar to where Tom ends with, but for me, it all started with fears and anxieties. It's something that we as a society, I think, have not been good with. I know I wasn't when I was younger too. I still did a lot of the things. I pursued the goals. I pushed forward, but there was always a sense of not being present when the outcome was positive and I made it through the door of opportunity. You know, most of us would go, man, I did it. And you'd throw down the football at in the goal and you'd do the dance. I was too afraid of what's next. I know that contentment that Tom was just talking about, and I want to speak into that, is that for me was robbed by myself not just letting go and letting God. And I think as Christians, we should be the least fearful of the world, of the future, doubting ourselves, because God calls us to live into him, to give over our fears and anxieties to him, and yet we don't. And I was one of those people. I still am. I'm just going to be honest. I still have a lot of fears and anxieties. Am I good enough? Can I do this? Will it turn out well? What's next? What's after that? That stops me more than anything else. I think it stops most people more than anything else. So I want Christian people out there that want to make things. I want you to hear this loud and clear. This is what I wish I knew when I was younger and driving forward. Yes, drive forward, but do it with the confidence that comes from the Lord that he will sustain you. He will not let you fall. And that's the most important thing. That doesn't mean you're going to be a success. That doesn't mean it's not going to be tremendously hard. He doesn't promise any of those things, that it's not going to be hard. But he does promise you will be able to do it. You'll make it through in some way or capacity that will glorify him.
Man. Well, just some absolutely humble and wildly practical advice. which I love. This is why I love asking, like, what would you tell yourself, right? Because it's only like, it's one thing to say, hey, work hard and grind at it to somebody else. It's a different thing to look at yourself and say, I did work hard and I did grind at it. I wish I would have been happier while I was doing it. Like, I wish I would have been more at peace while I was doing it. And the advice that you would often give yourself is so incredibly important. And I'll be honest with you guys, like, even for me, like, we're church planters. I'm insanely driven most days. If I have more than 3 or 4 hours where I'm not accomplishing something, I just go off a cliff. And so, for me, I live and breathe the church that we planted. It's a child to me, much like my own 2 children. And so, for me, that speaks to my heart, because I've been really battling with contentment. I've been really struggling through, like, at what point when we started this thing and God has taken care of us every step of the way and we've never been in want, am I content with God being enough? Like, what does he need to do? Is the future need to be paved with gold? What exactly do I need to know everything? Like, at what point do I decide that I quit and giving myself anxiety attacks, or I quit overwhelming myself? At what point do I quit worrying? At what point do I trust God because he's been trustworthy? And so I love that. It's a great word for me. Yeah, that's a really good word for me. So if nothing else, if it wasn't a good word for anybody else who listened, which it will be, it was a good word and it ministered to me. So thank you guys so much. Tom and Tony, thank you guys for being willing to come on the show. It was an absolute honor and a pleasure to have, the creators of Mushu and Pumbaa on the show. I mean, just incredible. And Kronk, yes. Well, guys, thank you so much. If you're listening in on this episode, listen, we'd love to be an encouragement to you. We'd love to help you to work through all of those initial fears about getting something off the ground, about launching something, which is why we're doing Nerd Culture Ministry Summit 2026, April 14th to the 16th in Colorado Springs, Colorado, inside of a castle in Garden of the Gods. It's an amazing environment. You get to wake up every morning with the Rocky Mountains and red spires of stone around you. And in addition to that, you get to hear great workshop leaders that come from the church planting world and come from the YouTube world and come from the voice acting world, from our keynotes. We're going to have a great lineup. Unfortunately, Tom and Tony aren't going to be able to join us in Colorado Springs, but
we have our own expo that we're doing actually that same month. It's a big deal.
Well, we have a really great lineup of keynotes and workshop leaders. We just sent out an announcement just the other day, an email that Denver guy is going to be there teaching us over 3 hours how to actually build a YouTube presence. We also just announced Caitlin Glass is the voice actress for one of the main characters in a lot of different animes, but specifically Full Metal Alchemist, who's going to be coming out and being one of our keynotes. And so if you'd like to come out and hang out with us, you can go and either register or pre-register right now at ncmsummit.com. The link is in the description of this episode as well. Go and register today. We have the entire place this year, and so you can book a room. It comes with breakfast and lunch while you're there, each of the days that you're going to be there. And so please, please, please come and hang out with us at Nerd Culture Ministry Summit this upcoming April in 2026. That's going to do it for this episode.
I want to go. I want to game all night long in a castle.
Listen, man, that's what we do. We do
never see the sun.
We do a D&D one-shots in one lodge. We do Magic the Gathering in a card game shop in another lodge in drafting.
Really?
We do another lodge where we set up a LAN party and we have a bunch of gaming systems and people chill, and then we use the Great Hall for board games. And so
how is that geeky? It only sounds cool.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Are there like wives there that get to go on hikes while the guys are
girls are geeky too. What are you saying?
No, I know that was reverse sexism.
We got about a 50-50, but you know what? One of our guys last year from one of our sponsors, he did bring his wife, and she did just enjoy a book at a fire at the lodge every morning, and then just hiking in the mountains. Right? It was just worth it.
Yeah,
just to go there. Yeah, wow, which was amazing. Oh my gosh. Okay, well that is going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in to the NCMU podcast. Be sure to come back for the next episode.